hello, and welcome to episode 67 of Trails in the Pod. I'm Colin, that's Kevin.
Colin, cannot wait for today's episode. We get to show off our street cred and talk about drugs. Golly gee, I knew all that time in the DARE program was going to serve us well one day. Today, we're doing chapter 4 of Trails from Zero, and it is the end game. Because the game tells you it's the end game and is not subtle by any means.
You do know that you've hit like the climax of the game or getting there when the game starts to tell you, you got any side quests? Wrap it up, wrap it up. But it also means, like, I don't know about you, but I got an achievement for completing all of the side quests,
Yeah, I definitely got that achievement.
especially because you loved the fishing side quests earlier. I remember.
I did that. I I did all that side quest stuff and definitely the tower side quest in this chapter I did too.
You really should have actually. Those fights get you really nice combo attacks.
I did two of them. I did all of them. Fuck.
Well, why don't we just get going talking about we're going to go day by day. We'll talk about the side quests and then we'll talk about the plot and the dungeons of these days, just give our impressions. This might be a long episode, it might not be a long episode. We're also trying to like wrap this up so that we can be good for the holiday break. So yeah, let's start with day one, in which something that Kevin had been predicting for a long time, but for a little bit, Noel joins the party.
Yeah, so I just want to say something in brief about the chapter as a whole. I thought it was a really good one overall. It did a great job setting the stage, tension, escalating stakes for the climax. It was an A plus effort. But you know it's not an A plus effort? My prophetic skills. I was so on. Noah's going to join. She's going to join. Any day now it's going to happen. New companion, SSS.
We have the rooms right there.
We do have the rooms. Such a red fucking hearing, Colin. You got empty rooms. God. So when she joined, I thought, oh, it's going to be it. But it's a temporary measure. She gives us one day of her presence because she's feeling under the weather. She only comes because she wants something from us because she's sick. Wow. She brings,
Is she sick? I thought it was more that she was trying to do this moon temple thing and needed the SSS because we have experience with the supernatural.
oh, Ellie was sick, my bad.
I mean, she's there the whole time. What are you talking about?
Ellie said she was sick.
Are you sure? Because Ellie is there the whole
Yes.
time.
But no, and she's there. But remember when we ring the bell in the temple?
I mean, she it feels bad then because she's afraid of ghosts. And also there's like the whole sound wave things that's fucking up with people. But she's not, she doesn't have a cold or anything.
Okay, so no joins. She brings us the latest armored core, and in a future episode, we'll talk about what kind of defense tactics and strategy would be good for Crossbow. So, someone's sick of life, the sick of crime and the mafia and Crossbow. Everyone is sick of the mafia, but especially Ellie is sick with the mafia.
She is not, what the fuck, man? She is not sick with the mafia.
She sees the chaos and iniquity going, lawlessness in the streets, and she knows she needs to fight to stay with the SSS and to return some library books.
Yeah, let's talk about the side quests before we start talking about the Moon Temple and everything like that. But this side quest on statewide overdue book retrieval, you have to go all around the state to collect people's overdue library books because they can't be asked to go back to the city and return it themselves. But what is striking to me about this version of the quest is not only are people too lazy to return their library books, they also seem to be poor managers of their own objects because every single one of them has lost the book or misplaced it in some way, shape, or form.
Like, Colin, You're a great guy. I think you'll enjoy your Christmas gift. Well, I think Clara will enjoy the Christmas gift a lot.
If you sent me crickets, I will kill you.
I would not lend you a library book. Believe me, I know firsthand how expensive they are to replace Cornell library books. It is
100
a
bucks.
pretty penny.
It is.
Yep. Yes, it is. I learned that when I was graduating. So this kind of lawlessness and antisocial behavior, I don't want to be extreme. Everyone involved should have been shot. But
Uh,
this
I mean,
quest is innovative.
how is it innovative?
Oh, I am being unironic here because I thought it was a simple fetch quest, like a number of others that we've had all throughout this game, this series. I was not expecting at all a monster fight in the main's mine tunnels. That took me completely by surprise. I had people who weren't healed, low EP, low CP, because I didn't think it was needed for this quest.
So you hold on, you went into a mine that we have access to for trading purposes, where there are monsters, and you thought we probably won't fight in here.
I thought we would just get the book, but also the monsters ran away from me. Like, almost all the monsters, I was so over leveled, they ran away.
You said that you found that I think you said that you found that that fight was difficult. Why did you think it was difficult?
So there was the unintentional handicap I had
Sure.
of spending a couple turns getting people into fighting shape, recuperating CP. So that kind of threw off a strategy. Had to be reactive, not as proactive as I would like. And the monsters themselves, I don't know if they were or they felt a bit more resistant to physical attacks and craft combos. I don't use arts all that much unless I get my ass kicked a couple times and I have to go really delve into the battle scope or TOS analyze what's the weaknesses and so forth. So a jolt out of the usual playing strategy of hit A to attack and win.
I don't remember feeling that way on this one, but there's a side quest on day two that we'll talk about that I felt that way big time. That was a tough combat quest, the one we'll talk about. But I mean, overall, I mean, I kind of found the second rendition of the Overdue Book quest to be a little bit overstaying its welcome. A part of it is because we played this chapter a bit in a rush, or at least I did. I'm just trying to like remove everything off of my plate before I leave from my mom's. So I didn't like take the time to read the books or anything like that, but I just found myself getting annoyed with the NPCs that we were talking to because I especially after the second time I knew that the third one was, oh, we're not going to just get the library book. I'm going to have to jump a couple more hoops just to pick up people's library books. As a policeman.
I want to read you some dialogue taken verbatim from the game, and I
Yep.
sent you a screenshot yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is so unserious, Colin. So unserious. We're from the Crossbow Police Department, Special Support Section. We actually came to collect your overdue library book, if you don't mind.
So
This is
I have to say I had an experience yesterday that made me reconsider uh like at first I thought this was not a job for the police, right? Wasting the SSS's time. And I still kind of think that. But you know what I did yesterday, Kevin? I was I was a real dumbass. And I locked my office door. I walked out of my office, closed it, and then checked to see if I had my keys. This is not the order one should do that. For I then realized that I left my house key and my car keys and my office key in the office that is now locked, right at the moment in which everybody's going home because it's 5 o'clock. I ran in. Luckily, I managed to catch the manager of the classics department as she was on her way out. She tried to open up the door, but she didn't have the key to my office on account of I'm technically in a different building. So we had to call the police to let me in. And I would not normally think that that's the police's job, but it sure saved my hiney. So I have to give a little bit of respect to the
no,
SSS for doing this.
that I think is a not totally outside the boundaries of what the police or should be doing. Collecting library books is.
Especially if like think about it like this, right? Libraries are chronically underfunded. Now we don't know the level that's spent on education or funding the public library from the state, but we can just take that as an axiom that libraries tend to be underfunded. Why not just let these books accrue fines? That way, in a week, then send the police not just to get the book, but also a little bit of collection. You know what I'm saying?
So Colin believed in the coercive power of the carceral state infecting even something so beloved as free London libraries. That's pretty disgusting, Colin. And you know what's disgusting?
Cooking.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell me what you thought about this Creative Cook's Wanted Quest. The point of it is that there are three stages of cooking that you can do. You can make a normal dish, you can make a I think it's like a supreme version or something that where it's way better, or you can fail at it so bad you make a peculiar dish that often will have like slightly different effects. It might turn for instance, if you're making a rice bowl, it might turn it into some darts that you can throw at enemies or stuff like that. And so this quest wants you to make at least 10 of them and turn it into the guy who's asking. What did you think about the quest?
Have you ever seen that GIF from The Simpsons of Abe Simpson, Grandpa Simpson walking in to a room and then immediately walking out?
Yeah,
That's my thought process on looking at this quest and learning that, oh, there's cooking involved.
I like how it just says in the Google Doc now, Kevin didn't do it.
I don't cook.
Neither in the
I
game,
never
huh?
found the need. I never found the need. I do arts, healing, or items I find, tear bombs.
Mhm.
Just never, I don't know.
See, that's why I think personally, uh, this particular quest should have been two different quests, and one of them should have been near the beginning of the game. Let me explain.
Hmm.
This quest is weird in which it tells you that if you want to finish it, you need to turn in 10 peculiar dishes. But actually, if you look at the guide, you have to find all of the recipes in the game, except the last one. Make peculiar dishes from those recipes, give them all to him, and then in as a reward for doing that kind of completionist stuff, he'll give you the last recipe of the game, which apparently you can only even do in chapter 5 anyway. So you're not even supposed to complete this quest in the chapter that you get. I didn't do that. I didn't have all of the recipes. That would require a bit more anal retentiveness than I wanted to have with trails. But so I can see the point of that in terms of like rewarding the completionist, rewarding you for going out of your way to collect all of these things. So that's why I think that's good at the end. But the quest also serves to introduce you to the concept, not just of peculiar dishes, but of the uses of cooking items in general. Because in order to make all of these dishes, you have to, make a lot of stuff in general. You can't just say, bam, make
Yeah.
a peculiar dish. You have to make like 4 or 5 normal stuff. And so then what I found after having done 10 of these is that now my inventory is filled with items that are really useful. Some of them are like heal half your HP and give you 50 CP, or like nice buffs as well as healing a large amount of HP. The cooking items are actually very useful, but you're right. Especially for playing on normal, which I am, you're playing on a harder difficulty. For the core uses of just healing, you don't need them. They are very powerful, but because you don't need them, you're likely to have not used the system that much and therefore not really seen how useful they can be. This quest does a good job at introducing you to that concept, but it's happening like right at the end of the game. I don't think that's placed very well. I would have liked to have seen one maybe in chapter 2, asking for 5 peculiar dishes. And then you can have another quest at the end, say chapter 5, that's the more completionist style.
You know, Colin, I don't think anyone's ever so politely told me I'm playing a game wrong before.
That wasn't my intention. I think actually you're playing it right. I mean, you are responding
Too
to what
late, I took it that way.
I'm trying to say is that you are responding to what the game is giving you, right? Which means that the game is communicating the need to use a system incorrectly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
You know who also has a problem with communication?
that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that our good friend Anton?
Once again, he is here. He's in every game, I believe you said,
Yeah, I think so. So far he has been. He was even in the third.
which is impressive to say the least.
So Anton likes to travel around because he really wants love. If I remember correctly, didn't we have a side quest with him in Trails the Second in which he and Olivier were doing a drinking contest with Ina? Um,
Yeah.
he even mentions that in this. It's one of the first time. It's one of the few times, other than like interactions with Ren. I mean, I guess also Estelle and Joshua. But this is one of those moments where knowledge of the previous games really helps to like build the world to like really see how these characters are interacting. So like we already have a sense of who Anton is when we see him, even though the characters are meeting him for the first time. And what's interesting about Anton now is that he has fallen head over heels in love with Fran, who I'm now starting to realize I don't know if we've actually talked about Fran on the podcast, but she is the sister of Noel and is also the one who's in charge of like all of our reporting inquests and stuff like that. So, our characters know her pretty intimately, and Anton wants us to hook him up with her.
He wants to know her intimately as well. So we go arrange a date with Noel as the go between, and surprisingly, shockingly, showing a very extreme lack of judgment, Fran says yes. And so we have to go get a pre date gift for Anton to take to Fran at the date. Now, to all our listeners, don't do that. It's weird. It's overly forward. It's kind of desperate and clingy. And is it any wonder why Anton cannot find love no matter where he goes? Colin, you're a classicist. You've heard of Seneca.
I have.
Do you know what he said about people who travel?
I not off the top of my head. No, it's been a few years since I've read his letters.
Seneca says if you have a bad state of mind and you travel, don't expect it to be fixed because the reason for your own unhappiness is coming with you. Anton's singleness is coming with him when he travels. That's why he can't get a date.
I find it fascinating that we are two classicists, and it's taken us a year and a half to really start using classical authors to interpret these games. This is the second time we've done it this month.
I'm a historian, Kevin said in an overly pedantic tone.
um, I feel bad for Anton in this quest
I don't.
because he's clearly like I understand the desperation, I understand the desire to like really impress the pretty girl. Totally get that. And it seemed like he was actually doing pretty well during the lunch date. And then he asks, do you like somebody right now? And Fran says, there's somebody I love with all my heart, which she's talking about her sister.
It's weird.
It's kind of weird to express it that way. She has to know that, I mean, unless she doesn't recognize that it's a date, but I think she knows that it's a date. She has to recognize how that's going to sound.
Colin, can I counter that?
Sure.
Still not what the top five weirdest sibling interaction moments.
Well, what weird sibling interactions have we seen up to this point other than Joshua and Estelle, which we've talked about ad nauseum?
Okay, I'm just gonna carefully step aside pseudo incest. I'm not gonna reference it. I'm not going to bring it up by any means.
Okay, Mr. Praeteritio, I know that there's a lot of pseudo incest in the Trail series. It's one of its biggest tropes. But didn't you say this was in the top five weirdest sibling relationships? We've only
Okay,
seen
there's
one.
at least there's no, I mean moments like things happening in a discrete time and place. So there's a lot of stuff with Joshua Stone. There's some weird stuff with Kevin, Reese's sister, because like she kind of like takes a sibling interest in him, but slips a piece of chocolate into his mouth with her tongue. Kind of odd.
That was before they formed the sibling relationship.
Still weird, Colin.
You think everything's
So
weird.
no, just the weird things. Okay. But yeah, it's a weird way of framing it, but Anton just jumps to conclusions, and his own insecurities cause him to stumble, and he ruins what could have been a good thing.
He's coming from a noble place. He hears from this girl, there's somebody that I love with all my heart, and so he steps away. He's not trying to ruin a good thing. Uh, I admire that. I probably would have reacted the same way. Which is not to my credit because I should at least ask who, and then when it's revealed to be the sister, maybe, you stay in the game. He didn't give himself that chance. But I do think that it speaks to, I don't know, a certain core strength of his character that, above it all, he is a kind man, uh, which is something that we should pay attention to.
Colin, I turned on my camera just so you can see my reaction to
I
you
saw
saying
that, yeah.
core string. Colin, he is as weak-willed as me faced with candy.
I didn't say he had a strong will. I said that there's like an inner kindness to the man.
There is, I would say, a puppy kindness. There is no strength to Anton.
Who said he was strong?
You literally just said there's an inner strength to him.
By a strength, I meant like, a virtue. I didn't say that he was strong. Well, you can say that something like that, oh, that's a strength of your character. It means it's one of the things that are like, it's good.
You know a lot about strength. I am ignorant on the subject. What is strength? Or is something strong because it has strength, or is there a strength in itself?
Have you been reading Plato lately? Fucking Socrates. Udamo Socrates. All right,
Okay,
so
let's move on
yeah.
to the monster mash.
So as always, we're going to skip the West Crossbell Monster Extermination quest. But now, so Noel is driving us around in her armored vehicle, which, by the way, I only unlocked after I did all of my traveling for the side quests, on account of I didn't realize I had to go get the car. But it doesn't really change that much anyway. You can fast travel a bunch of different places just using the bus. And so Noel brings us to the Moon Temple, which is spooky scary because there's like ghosts and shit, just like at Stargazer Tower.
Oh, is it a JRPG or anime or whatever trope for the woman to be scared of ghosts? Because we can see it. Well, it's in Sword Art Online, the Progressive Light Novels, Volume 5, when Asuna is scared of. Don't laugh at me, Colin. Wipe that smirk off your face. When Asuna is scared of ghosts going into the underground of the Puzzle City, I believe. There's a side quest with ghosts. Okay, back to Trails. I did not like the Moon Temple. I thought the layout was confusing. It was poorly structured. I try to avoid a guide for this kind of things only for some secret quests remind you to do A, B, and C, or if I'm really stuck, but I had to do a guide for the entire dungeon, and that is not something I do. It was just I think we've really suffered from the lack of a dungeon map here more than other dungeons.
I mean, I would agree that a dungeon map would be nice. Granted, I've already done this like a year ago or 2 years ago at this point. I will say I remember hating it the first time. I didn't find it that bad this time because I think it looks confusing because there's a bunch of branching hallways and stuff like that. But something that you'll realize, and you've realized now, I'm sure, is that when you like, okay, a branching hallway, most of them take you to like one room. And everything then ends up being connected. There's like a couple of shortcuts and stuff, but it's not that hard to get all the chests.
Colin, I'm built different, built stupid.
I have a moment like that in the Ravash headquarters that makes me glad that I just got new glasses because I'm clearly blind. Um, but no, I mean the Moon Temple. I think a lot of people don't like it that much. I didn't think it was that bad. I do think it's an interesting introduction. Might not be the right word, but it's like bringing the supernatural front and center in a way that even Stargazer Tower didn't. This is more hellish. This is more like Gehenna.
And that is a theme for the chapter. The supernatural really comes, like you said, front and center. And by doing so, I realize it ties into the other games, which this has been a very mundane game, and so has one and even two. But what ties them is the supernatural in the end. I'm just thinking out loud
Mhm.
here. Like, it's mundane until it's not. And we saw that again here.
In your judgment, do you think that the game is doing a good job at plausibly introducing supernatural elements?
Yes,
let me explain what I mean.
I think it does.
So like in Trails 1 and 2, or FCSE, there's like a few moments that we see the supernatural that are like it's related to like these different dimensions and stuff like that. And we've talked a little bit about how convincing that can be, but it's like discrete. It's like in that area because for a very specific reason. And then we did get a lot of the supernatural in Trails the Third, but also that thing is also kind of a fever dream. It's not actually physically happening in the real world of Zemuria. It's happening, inside
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
the Aureole or whatever the fuck. This is in both towers that have like ancient or medieval pasts. This is when we see the supernatural, and it's implied that these things it just exist here normally.
And I think it primes us to be ready for the gnosis and the plausible supernatural shenanigans linked with that later in the chapter. But interestingly, they're also connected very much to the observational, to the quote unquote scientific, running experiments, trying to replicate results, pin down causal relationships between, I guess, symptoms, or maybe trying to science advise the supernatural, trying to replicate the supernatural through mundane means with the aid of the drugs. I wonder.
Well, what's the connection that you're drawing between Gnosis and the supernatural? Because from what I remember, Gnosis is a drug that is developed by the DG cult. Well, I guess that would be it because they've turned away from Idios and they
Demons.
worship devils, and
Yeah.
therefore now they are trying to create this drug. But I don't know if there's like we're learning how to do this drug from devils. It's just they worship devils.
I thought there was something about summoning going on.
That could be. I don't remember it.
And there's also links with a certain lowercase s society. And I think we should be doing a capitalization with that. And whatever the society's plans, think back to that interlude that we saw the end of, I guess it was Essie with the Grand Master and so forth. There's definitely supernatural shenanigans to the brim with the society.
Yes, definitely. What's interesting to me about the DG cult and bringing in the society in this way is that the game, like Ouroboros, had been mentioned like one or two times, mostly in conjunction with Ren. But
Yes.
the game has done a pretty good job at keeping the secret society a secret, for one, and building up these characters outside of the drama of the society that we had experienced in SC and a little bit in the third. And I like that. It allows us to experience this place, Crossbell, without any of that, without the society, without uh, the secret drama, world-ending struggles kind of a thing. And
You
now it's
do like
being,
that or you don't?
I do like that.
Okay.
But now we're being introduced to it, but in a way that feels organic for the SSS.
I have to admit, I when I say I forgot it was a Kiseki game, I don't mean that I literally forgot which series in the podcast and so forth. I was like playing, I forgot. It was totally out of my mind. Like the whole overarching society Uroburos narrative structure. I was so focused on the internal politics of Crossbell. And that I think is very much to the game's credit.
Yes, one could say it's a strength of the game.
And so hearing it get tied in, I felt it was natural by playing it into Tio, who we know, into Guy, who we don't know, but has such an influence on the characters, into the plot lines that we are engaging with. It was quite well done. It wasn't an a perpendicular motion into the game. Oh, by the way, the society took someone hostage. It was the culmination of what we've been doing for several chapters now.
Well, and speaking of culmination of what we've been doing, once we finish the Moon Temple, we get a phone call because the police got to go do some more policing. And so we head to Mainz to talk to the mayor there. And Kevin, I want to like let you rant a bit about your idea of mayoral politics.
Maybe I hate camaraderie, solidarity, small town relationships, and happiness and joy. But I do not understand, and we'll get into this more later. One, the mayor of a town is like, oh, I haven't seen someone in 2 weeks. Can you go check on them at the casino? And now you say it's a town of under 10 families. That is a pure limitation of the game, Colin. The town clearly has several hundred people, if not like 1,000 or two, in its population limits. It's just
Okay, hold on. You say clearly. Where is your evidence? What evidence do you have of that?
and that I also don't think Crossbelt has a population of 200 at most, more like 100. It's abstractions for the game.
It could be. I don't know. That's what I thought about the Bracer Guild, but I think I was wrong about that.
I Do you think Crossbelt has 100 people, Colin, in it?
What I'm saying is that no, no, it can't be a financial metropolis with 200 NPCs. You're
Much.
right.
So it's weird. I'll have more to say when the mayor takes even more of an interest later on.
Well, so we,
But one thing I want to say though,
yeah,
I did not think much about this request when I first got it. I thought, it's just something. And this evolves into a very major component of the plot and for the chapter, and I think maybe for the game. But when it's first introduced, I was like, okay, when's the important stuff coming?
right.
And I didn't realize or think this is important.
I mean, it kind of harkens back to your approach to, was it chapter three, the festival that had like the four different days where like, okay, days two, three, and four, they all kind of lead up to the Schwarza auction. But then day one is just like fishing with Gunter. And you weren't quite so sure about how that all fit in.
I'm still not quite so sure. I mean, I get how we introduce more to Gunter here and how we stop him from fishing, but whatever.
So we go gambling or we go to the casino. I gambled a little bit. Whenever I go to the casino, I play some poker. It's fun. I know. Can you believe that there's gambling in this establishment? But when we find what's his name? Gantz, I think. Because we've run into him a couple of times where he's been very drunk, he's terrible at gambling, He's kind of a disgrace to his father and country and mother and all that. But now he's
Yes.
like looking super rich. He's got honeys all over the place. He's like good to go. But something that's interesting is his gambling skills have gotten really good. It's as if he's able to like predict what's going to happen. He can like read people really well. Except he's fighting against Lecter. We go in the back room. They are having a gambling match, and Lecter. We've also seen that Lecter has some stuff going on. He's kind of extraordinary in a few ways. We're not really quite sure how or why. He is able to defeat Gantz in a gambling match, but nobody else is able to. And Gantz is really mad that he lost to Lecter. And frankly, if could you imagine like having all this newfound confidence, and then somebody with the attitude of Lecter Arundel just slaps you metaphorically across the face. I'm not saying I condone violence at all, but I'm saying is I understand the impulse.
Yeah, it's something to make Lecter the reasonable, mature one.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that happens at the end of this chapter is that all of a sudden, Highway is attacked by Ravash. And we're not talking like a street gang fight or anything like that. We're talking a bunch of goons show up to their front door and start shooting them with machine guns in one hand, even though they should take like four people to hold them.
And it cuts to black pretty soon after Sal gets word that, they've taken the first two floors. They are coming. Drums. Drums in the deep. We cannot get out. They are coming.
Yeah, but what's the point of that?
Oh, okay. So Cal, Balin, and Nori die because of the Bal. Oh, not because of the Balrog. It's something different. Okay. So we get the scene. Hayu is attacked by
Highway.
Ravash.
It's
Hayue.
yeah.
And I don't know if we're meant to connect that to Gantz. In retrospect, it's fairly obvious, but does the game want us to do that at this moment, or is it more
The,
of a
I think that the game probably wants to like sow some seeds. It's not like it takes very long for them to connect the dots for you. Is that something they're trying to hide? What
I did not think make any connections while watching that.
I don't remember if I did the first time. I did the second time, but that's because I already knew what was going on, right? So like that was pretty obvious. But they do stress that these soldiers are like remarkably powerful in ways that they hadn't expected. So I feel like there you're supposed to be like, huh, people are randomly changing. Uh, but what's also kind of important to recognize is that Sao is able to fight them off. Everybody else can't, but he is able to hold down the fort. He doesn't have to go to get Risha to do it. He's a skilled fighter, and by skilled we mean able to take on Gnosis powered goons by himself. He's somebody to keep an eye on.
Yeah, um, yeah, I guess. I don't know if this moment would be one you'll point to in our final wrap up and be like, Kevin, why didn't you connect the dots on Sal here for someone that we've met or will meet or whatever? But
Like when you
my head is
completely didn't
empty.
recognize Ren's parents.
You know, yes, like that.
So before we talk about drugs, let's talk a little bit about the side quests for this day. Um, you have missed one here, which tells me that you didn't do it. So there are, I think, three side quests we need to talk about. We have first the search for an important person, where Representative Campbell, his daughter, runs away because he's an overbearing parent, and she is also kind of a bitch too. And so they fight.
No, no.
Yeah, yeah. she is very self-absorbed and treats her maid like property.
I connected so much to her.
Well, what you clearly have spent more time thinking about this relationship, so what's your take?
She was young, I'm guessing late teenager if she's in the same class as Ellie. So what, 16, 17, 18, 19, somewhere
Basically a
in
young professional.
there. Okay, Colin, you interact with 18 and 19-year-olds. How mature are they?
They are not mature, but I'm talking about in the context of this game when 18 and 19-year-olds are star detectives.
Gonna move beyond that. Yeah, she's emotional. She has a right to be. It looks like her father doesn't validate, acknowledge her emotion, doesn't really see her as a full person, more as an ancillary prop for his own life and ambitions. He says this cannot get out about her running away, not I'm so concerned for my daughter, I'm worried sick. It's how does this impact me? Can it negatively impact me? There is a bond it looks like between okay, first go on, Colin.
Counterpoint. It is
No.
the job of a politician to maintain their public image, to not take steps to make sure that this doesn't get out into the public would be political malpractice. And as the leader, I believe he's the leader of the Eastern faction, basically minority leader, you have to keep this stuff in mind. We respect strong politicians on Trails in the Pod.
Okay, yeah. And but to be so focused on that and to not have any for, his he can let his hair down, so to speak, in private. It's him and his political ally and the SSS. Like, I don't know.
So I mean, look, I'm not saying he's the world's best father or anything like that, and I'm not saying that the daughter doesn't have some really good reasons for wanting to get out of to run away and start anew. I'm going to sound incredibly judgmental, and
Oh God.
you can probably I'm sure that people will say that my take here is uh not right. But here's my thing. We've established that people of Ellie's age can go off and have a career, can go off and study, can go off and get a job. Ellie has done that, and it's not like, actually, they're pretty comparable because her grandfather is Mayor McDowell. So Ellie has gone off and she studied in Erebonia. She has joined the police force. She's living her own life. Whereas this girl is not. She stays at home all day and lets her father tell her what to do. And then they fight and stuff like that. But as opposed to just staying in the house and fighting all the time, why didn't she go to college? Why hasn't she found a job?
Was she this, I don't think we can talk without just getting into speculation, but yeah, people like Ellie and Lloyd age can do all this. Should they? I don't think so.
I mean,
Going to college would be a better thing than going straight into the workforce.
in the logic of that's presented in this world is that it seems like a pretty normal thing to have a career at the age of 18. Does it make any sense? No.
Does adolescence exist in this world? Not I meant the social
Yeah.
construct.
That's a really good point, and I'm not so sure that it does. I mean, like it's recognized that Tio is a bit too young when she first joins the SSS, but that hasn't been brought up pretty much ever since.
Estelle and Joshua. Estelle was 16 in FC.
Going on 17.
You are 16. So, and that's treated as sort of young, but more like on the younger side, not like out of the realm. No, you're
Well,
too
it
young.
and also like Estelle and Joshua's bracer exam at 16, that was like the culmination of their education, and then they entered the workforce. Um,
Yes.
it's as if they were doing an apprenticeship program for AP credit or whatever the hell in a high school. Um, to me, it seemed like early adulthood starts at like 15, 16. Tio is a little bit younger than that, but like people have moved on because she's outwardly mature and is useful for the SSS and all of that. But then that also means that if you're 18 and you're still living at home with your parents, something is wrong here.
Yeah, on the flip side, that is true. I wonder, though, if it's more acceptable for the nobility or the wealthy because they have the financial resources to not demand household formation. I can imagine a lower class, like, get out. We You have money now. We can't afford that much more. Campbell has the resources to let his daughter live a life of indolence.
It also could be that we've established that Campbell is pretty controlling. It could be that he's afraid of what the daughter would do with autonomy that might go counter to his political image. So it could be a family management decision that, in that case, I can't blame the daughter. I would have to blame Campbell for that.
And again, even for Lloyd, him being a detective at 18 is very unusual. Him being a police officer at 18, from what we've seen, I do not think that is unusual hardly at all.
No, I think the weird thing is that he's also passed his detective exam. That's what makes
So
him
yeah,
exceptional.
I don't think adolescence exists, which makes it, I think, to your point, even more unusual for Carla, not Clara, for Carla to be
I like how we only looked up
floating in
her
life.
I like how we only looked up her name right when we're about to be done talking about her.
Yeah. Well, I wrote her name in the doc about an hour or two ago. So
Oh, I didn't see it. I guess I need new glasses. Oh, I already have them.
that's that's interesting then and adds some interesting dimensions to what is essentially a pretty standard fetch quest.
Yes. Speaking of pretty standard fetch quests, let's talk about flowers for fallen friends. But we go meet up with Quint the Grave,
Yeah.
and
So
he wants us to run around collecting flowers.
because he was the recipient of an experimental intelligence boosting treatment that it's going to kill him. He can feel it slipping away. He'll revert to his stupid baseline that he had before, and he needs the flowers.
Kevin, this is
They're
a
the
different
only
piece of
thing
media.
he can remember from his friend Algernon.
Okay. Um, so first of all, let's just talk about how this quest lore-wise is pretty interesting because we learn more about Guy, and Guy's past is pretty relevant for the story that's being told throughout this whole chapter. And we learn a little bit more about like the traditions of Crossbell, how people aren't learning the traditions, kind of plays into this tradition versus progress conflict that we've been seeing. But gameplay wise, it's just another one of these where we run around and press X at the right area and come back. And I feel like I'm getting to the point where standard fetch quests are becoming gameplay wise unsatisfying. Now, granted, it's at the end of
Yes,
the game. So, okay, they're not satisfying anymore. I don't got to do them anymore.
I agree. The going from one part of the map to the other, it's kind of annoying. I think if we could just have gone with the Gravekeeper or doing something without crossing too many maps somehow, that'd be better, or find them in the cathedral stuff. I think it was just we went all about crossbow. It felt the expanse made it more annoying.
Especially when it pulled the same thing that happens with the books. We go to the
Yes.
general store, we're told like, oh, these flowers are just you can just buy them at the store. And he's like, oops, sorry, I'm out of stock, and I didn't bother to check ever. So I guess you have to go collect them yourself. Could you imagine if you went to Walmart trying to buy something, and the shopkeeper's like, "Well, I guess you gotta go someplace to go get it."
That would suck. That would suck indeed. And we, we place the bouquets of flowers on three gravestones. Two of them, I think, are fairly obvious why. Arvios' wife, who died at age 24, Guy
Great old lady.
Banning's, and one too weathered by time. And Colin, what are the odds only two of these gravestones are actually important? I would bet you dollars to donuts. This third gravestone is going to be important. Maybe it's Kia's and like she's a zombie or whatever. I don't know what, but
No,
that gravestone is going to
I
come
feel
up
you.
again.
But there's no reason to bring up this gravestone unless it means something.
Oh, it's too weathered away by time. We can't tell. It's like, okay, okay.
Frankly, I forget what it means, so it's going to be a surprise to me when if it is revealed.
So it can't be
Um,
that important then.
I mean, it's been a while, and things have been busy. Who knows what
Yeah,
pops out of my head?
but if Kia was a fucking zombie, you would remember that. So it can't be like
Or I
momentous.
could be lying to you. I am a master of deception.
I'm a great liar. I love the horror. Okay.
All right. Speaking of, I don't have a good transition, but I do need to talk about a secret quest that I'm guessing you didn't do. If you go to Imelda's shop during this day, she will say that she's trying to get George, the doll maker, to sell to make this doll that she's trying to sell, and he's not being cooperative. And so you go up to the doll factory to try to convince him, um, you know, to just do it. And the way that he decides to test you is that he sicks a bunch of automatons on you. A bunch of them are like angels, and then two of them are like devils in the back. And this is probably the hardest fight we've experienced in this game because I lost it 4 times. And what's interesting is you don't get a chance to like retry quickly or to lower the difficulty. You don't get a chance to lower the difficulty at all. Narrative wise, it kicks you out. And the doll maker, whose name I'm like blanking on, George something, Rosenberg. It's because the Rosenberg doll factory. Um, he kicks you out and gives you advice on how to beat the fight, and then you can try it again. Uh,
Mm.
the reason why this fight is difficult is because a bunch of the angels have this pretty devastating bouncing attack. Just one character taking a hit of like 400 HP, that's not so bad. But when there's 5 or 6 of these angels and they can all attack like 3 or 4 of your party members at once, you could go from like full health to not so full health on everybody really quickly. So you would say, okay, luckily I have a bunch of super good S crafts that I can just take them all out. And that's true. They do have high stats, so it's unlikely that you're going to one shot any of them. You'll probably get a lot of them down to like 25%, 20% health. But also the devils in the back are resistant to any kind of physical attack, including S crafts. And by resistant, I don't mean they don't take no damage. I'm saying they don't take any damage and they reflect it all back at you. So if you do any of your S crafts that attack everybody, you will die. Plain and simple.
Yes.
Also, the Devils have a soft timer where after a while they start casting an S craft of their own that is an insta kill. So you're time locked and you can't just nuke everything. Which required me to like go back and change how my party was structured on the map itself, which is pretty interesting. I had to go back and change the orbital makeups in like Tio and Ellie's so I could emphasize Earth magic more. It made for a very good challenge. It was frustrating at the time because I'm not used to having to do that, but once I finally did it, that felt rewarding. And it does make it comes back to this classic dilemma that I have when we're talking about the combat systems in these games. Because like I think back to my time playing Trails the Third on hard mode. Granted, that was also because I streamed half the game, and so um I was even more frustrated, losing a lot in public. But the good part about playing it on the hardest difficulty was that it forced me to engage in the systems a lot more. But it also meant that I couldn't just sit back on the couch, have a couple of glasses of wine, and breeze through the game, which is how I like to play Trails most of the time. I don't particularly need a difficult time. I'm there to understand the story. Yes, the gameplay is fun. I need it to be fun. It can't be Planescape, but it doesn't need to be particularly super challenging either. But when it gets to like these moments where you get like a little bit extra challenge, it's kind of satisfying. And then I wonder, shouldn't the game have more of these? But I really don't know where the balance should be.
What about the what lowering the difficulty after when you lose each time, just for that specific fight?
For that specific fight, you're not allowed to.
And then I mean, if you could have that in general, would that be it?
You mean just remove the option of lowering the difficulty?
Having that in, if you could pull a Kevin on every fight.
Oh, you can pull a Kevin on every fight except that one. So I
Yeah.
don't understand what you're asking.
Okay, I couldn't get this quest because Colin, you know why? I tried. I did try.
Because you didn't have enough DP, because you didn't fish.
And it's literally the reason. I was bored from this quest because you need a certain amount of other side quests completed that I did not do.
And I don't think that we actually know what the real requirements are. The guide on Neoseeker says you have to have all of the DP available up to that point, but I didn't, and I could still do the quest. So that part was not true. Maybe it's fulfilling all of the quests up to that point. That could be. I don't know.
I I don't like this gatekeeping.
I like gatekeeping. I think we need more gatekeeping.
In certain aspects, yes, in certain others, no.
I like gatekeeping that makes me feel superior to you.
Okay, I can get behind that wholeheartedly.
All right, so why
But
don't we
I'm tired. Time for a snoozle because on to day three.
wait? Hold on. I don't think we've like talked about the
Oh
main
shit, you're
plot of
right.
day two at all.
No, we haven't. Okay. We get the cringiest dare scenes here.
The cringiest what scenes? Oh, dare
Dare.
scenes. Well, because they're all on drugs and they're having a great time.
We go talk to Sal, who starts us on the path of the evil awfulness of drugs. That leads us to Gantz, who has a set of very vivid blue drugs in his pocket. I'll sidestep the obvious Breaking Bad Walter White reference. And the mayor of Mainz is concerned. Well, he doesn't have anything better to do than involve himself in the personal activities of someone outside the village, but
I mean,
moving
how
on.
dare he take an interest in the lives of his residents? What an asshole, right? Oh my God.
But he's like, Gant is not the type to use drugs. He's a lower class, working class individual who presumably has an addiction. Life isn't going the greatest. Like, Colin, maybe I'm being insensitive, but would that not be the prime socioeconomic factors for drug use and abuse?
I mean, especially since his addiction before this was gambling, which he was not good at, which is only going to make him feel even worse. I'm not saying that all people, it, there's a reason why we in the United States have a opioid epidemic that's centered in like Appalachia and in other working class areas. This is a group that can be susceptible to drugs, especially this is a new one. It's not like Gantz knows the side effects or knows what harmful effects it could have.
No,
He's taken it, and all of a sudden, he's successful at everything. If you were offered Gnosis, and we haven't even gotten to the point where we know what it's called yet, we'll get to that in a second. But I'm just curious, Kevin, if you were offered a super drug that would make you like the best scholar and the best writer and the best trivia person and also the best at eating Chipotle, wouldn't you take it?
Colin, I'm a strong-willed person. I don't give in to temptation.
You just said earlier in the episode that you have a very weak will when it comes to candy.
Okay, yes, I ate a bag of peanut butter M&Ms the other night because I wanted to. So I wanted to do that. So I have a strong will, actually.
Right. You've recognized your desires and you're making sure they get
Yeah,
fulfilled.
yeah. In fact, you should praise me for being so in tune with myself.
You know what? I love your self-care routine. That is, you need to be doing more of that, man. We all need to emulate you.
Thank you. Little treat for every part of the day. So, what's interesting is I think it's left unexplained, how did he get the drug? Not like, but how did he physically get that packet? And why him?
Yeah, I think that was part
He
of
seems
the
unusual,
yes. And this, especially since the mafia, we were told doesn't get involved in the drug trade that much.
which I don't like the when the mafia has like, oh, they have moral codes, or like it's like, what? You are literally killing people for money. Don't
But
pretend that you have
you
morals
act like
or even
organized crime
standards.
doesn't have any kind of code of honor. Mafia is definitely used to. You've seen The Sopranos.
They have standards, which is different from morals.
Sure. I would say even ethics. Morals may be the wrong word, but ethics might
Ethics,
be
yeah.
the better way of putting it. Um, Especially, we also have to keep in consideration the Asian context from my understanding. And, I am a gringo as it comes, so I'm not speaking from firsthand experience, but they seem to have a much stronger aversion to drug culture. For instance, um,
Yeah, it's true.
I listen to K-pop sometimes. And there is, I know your face. I know, but I like it. It's good stuff. I listen to J-pop all the time too, sometimes K-pop. And there is a band, a boy band, called Big Bang, headed by a guy named G Dragon. And apparently, like, I don't know why. All of a sudden on Twitter, I saw it trending. We stand with G Dragon. I'm like, why the fuck are people standing with this guy? He makes good music, but what's going on? And it turns out that he was under investigation for doing drugs. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I look at his Wikipedia page, and this is the second time he's been investigated for drugs. The first time he was investigated for doing drugs, he was accused of smoking marijuana once.
Um,
And his side of the story was that he was hanging out with some Japanese fans. They passed around a cigarette that he took a couple of puffs of so as to be polite, and he did not know that that was marijuana. Which, if you roll your own cigarettes and you roll marijuana, I guess they could look similar. What I'm saying is that the fact that this man apparently had a couple of tokes of Mary Jane was enough to set the country of South Korea on fire. That is not something that we in the States would even think about being remotely worthy of comment, at least now.
that is, I admit, surprising. I would expect as a baseline, pop stars of a certain age, like, yes, it would be unusual if we did not smoke marijuana or light other drugs. What say you?
Yeah,
So there is the underlying cultural conception that incorporates like, the baselines that we don't think about when we go about our day, how we see the world, if that makes sense.
absolutely. That's the point I'm trying to make. We're approaching this from a
Oh
Western
my
perspective because we're
God,
Westerns.
Colin, I'm agreeing with
I'm
you.
agreeing with you.
So Gantz does, on retrospect, seem to be an outlier, and I wonder if that will come into play more? How did he, why him? Why not other people in the casino, in the mining commune get gnosis?
Well, so as part of our investigation that we do on day three, there are three people that have gone missing. One is Gantz, one is Dino from the Vipers, and the other one is Nikolai in Liar Conceal. And all of them have the same traits of down on their luck, feeling like they're not good enough, maybe some simmering resentment or frustration that now that they've taken Gnosis, they can do things like challenge their supervisors, like Dino does, or like start all of a sudden performing on the stage magically and winning the adulation of everybody and then becoming an arrogant prick because of it. That's both Gantz and Nikolai. It seems like they're targeting people down on their luck and then seeing how the enhancements of their abilities translate to
Ah,
real world
okay.
success.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so I mean, I knew that this connection, but you would that have to be some sort of prolonged observation, I wonder, of how do you pick someone out with those qualifications, with those characteristics?
Right. And presumably
Huh.
they would have to know about who these people are and have observed them. But Crossbell's a
So
pretty
we've
small
talked,
place. There's like 200 inhabitants in the whole city. So,
yes, we've talked about gnosis a couple of times, and it takes a while for us on day three to learn what this is called.
no, well, we're told about it on day two, aren't we?
Yes.
We don't know that the drug itself is Gnosis, but we're told about the existence. No,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I think. I'm getting the timeline confused, but we're told. When are we told about the DG cult? Isn't it first referred to by Gunter on day two when we bring in the drug and he like tells us rumors about the cult lodge and how this could be something similar to that. And then it's revealed that Tio was part. That's where she was getting experimented upon.
Yes, that is by surgery in the SSS HQ.
Later, yes, no, but Tio
Yeah,
reveals to us that she was experiencing that. That's before we get back.
I swear we played this game, guys.
Like recently, Kevin played it today. I beat it. I beat the chapter 2 days ago, I think.
Not in work hours, let me make that clear.
Not. Nope. Definitely not.
You get a lot about Tio in this chapter.
Yes.
She was experimented on with a group of children by the D therefore G cult. And I don't know how physical or if there's anything like brain chemical or metaphysical, but she cannot connect emotionally, really, or sense, or in turn, it's about her emotional perceptions. Um, Kind of coded autistic almost, except it's not like a. I think it's more metaphysical, magical, something with the experiment summon they were trying to do.
It's hard for me to tell if it's a product of being experimented upon to create the Gnosis drug or a response to all the trauma that she went through. It could be both. I
Yes,
don't know.
it's unclear, but she doesn't express herself emotionally, doesn't connect much on. Well, she connects on with emotions of other people. We see her form these deep, lasting bonds with the SSS, with Zeiss, God knows why, and with Kia.
I mean, definitely, this moment I think is fundamental for the relationship between Tio and the rest of the SSS. It's one of these moments in which Tio I think realizes that she has a family.
And the connections are drawn, of course, with someone else who was taken from their family in a traumatic environment.
Yes, Ren.
They were both rescued by people connected to the protagonist of the game.
So like Ren was saved by Ouroboros, And then Tio is saved by look like Cassius, Guy, Arios. Like it was a bracer run operation in conjunction with Crossbell Police.
Yes.
We also know that I think it's we might learn this in day three. It doesn't matter when we learn it. That like Tio was at one lodge. There were other lodges, and all of these different lodges did different things. So not every lodge is going to try to create the gnosis drug.
I But they were all part with the demonic core base, my understanding.
I mean, they're all part of, they're all connected to the DG
Yeah,
cult. That's, yes, that's what I'm trying to get at though, is that like what they're doing to people is different depending on upon location.
yeah. And she's the only one. I wonder now if D does that stand for demon, diabolism, maybe demonic? I don't know. Demons. Oh, who or therefore gnosis, wisdom. Hmm.
God, maybe?
Do we learn
I
what these
frank
stand for?
I don't remember. We might. We might. I don't remember.
Geo learns she has a family. We learn there's a connection between Tio, Guy, and Lloyd. And
I mean, we kind of
but
already knew that there was a connection between Tio, Lloyd, and Guy, but now we see how it connects to wider
yes,
happenings.
yeah, and this is when we get more info on the society on Ouroboros, and it's drawing us in through, like, Tio, through someone that we've been with for 4 chapters now, that make it more meaningful, more
Yeah.
impactful. Of the side quests of day three, I don't know how much there is to talk about besides maybe the orbital staff.
So the
The
Orbals.
monster exterminations,
So I like the exterminations. You seem to think that they were very difficult.
um,
I
only Stargazer Tower. I thought that I gave up. It was too hard. The other two I got.
mean, so like these are good to do, as we had alluded to, that they give us new techniques. And unlike the on SC, they had these combo techniques, but that I didn't ever find them useful. I will say I have been using the combos in this game. I find them to be quite helpful. So it was good to learn more of them. The Orbital Staff enhancement is interesting because A, we learn more about the Orbital Staff, but also the game explicitly talks about crafts. Like it acknowledges their presence. They are things, they're not
Yes.
metaphors. And that's interesting. We had kind of debated about that a while ago, but this is definitive proof that crafts are actual techniques that people are doing in battle.
And we learn more about Tio and the Epstein Foundation, and there is not the rosiest relationship there.
No, but that guy's kind of creepy.
You know, I think it's kind of obvious what aura they're trying to draw on. I'm not going to dignify that with by talking about it.
The only annoying thing I found about this quest in particular is that you can only do it by going into the final dungeon to get the team material there. And so when I did it, I was like, and this is me just being a moron. I found it, then I got out of the dungeon to go finish the quest. Then I realized I had to go back in the way that I came in order to get the key, and then had to leave again, where I could have just gotten the key, left, finished the quest, come back and get the other key on the other side of the dungeon. So a little bit of that is my fault, but it is also like it. Let's stop your dungeon crawling for a bit to go finish a side quest and then come back. Kind of broke up the flow a little bit, and like Dudley even points that out.
Yeah, like why he literally leaves, for the cutscene and then comes back.
He says like, "Well, this is boring. I have shit to do." By the way,
Oh,
we have
by
important
the way,
things to be doing,
guys,
guys.
also we get a new party member for the final part of the chapter.
Yeah, but did you use them?
Oh, I did. I took out Tio.
Okay. I kept the SSS. I like Dudley's support effects. You know, giving like huge buffs to strength and speed for 5 turns. That's pretty great.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I thought the design of the final dungeon was not the best. Too much backtracking after we got the keys. Um, and then cut this out. We can wrap it up in the next 10 minutes or so.
I mean, I think we can do that. I will say, I was mad at myself. I couldn't find the second key when I was doing this because I completely missed a staircase that goes down. And then so I ran around that area for a long time trying to figure out where the fuck I fucked up. Only to find, oh, I'm just blind and couldn't see that I can go down here. And then it was like the next room. Bada bing, bada boom. There's the key. Um, I do kind of like the design idea of having different wings, and then you have a goal at the end of each to then bring it together.
Yes.
It gives
Yes.
the illusion of non-linearity. At least you can choose which way to go. Um,
Yeah.
so I found this to be a lot better than, say, the Bandit hideout in FC.
I just wish after we got the keys, there should have been some way to get back to the beginning of that wing without just backtracking the entire way.
I agree, or at the very least, like the problem isn't the backtracking. The problem is that there's a lot of enemies in the way that some of them are unavoidable. And then by the time you're done, they're giving you like one experience point. I would have
Yes,
liked to see something where it's like, okay, we've gotten this key, security override. We've shut down this wing. Now you can explore at your leisure.
that's a great way of doing it, I think. And once we get both keys from both wings, we have a fairly standard boss fight in the inner depths of the sanctum of Ravash. And I don't know how much use is it to talk about it in detail, but after that,
I mean, one thing that
we
we
go
should
into the
mention about
oh,
Ravash is that Ravash seems to have really advanced technology drawn from the society. They somehow have connections to Ouroboros, so we're fighting a lot of archaisms. And the final boss of this dungeon is like a samurai robot.
and it makes you wonder why aren't they using this to win the mafia fight?
My impression would be that if they were using it to fight Highway, it would become public knowledge that they have it. And
Ah,
this kind of technology, I mean, it's getting a little bit more understandable. Apparently, Liark and Ciel is using a lot of the same kind of technology. This is something that was revealed in the side quest you couldn't do. That they are using a lot of these kinds of automatic stuff, but that's more from like the Rosenberg people. The Ouroboros stuff is like full on cyborgs and robots and shit. That's really advanced. I would want to keep that in my back pocket for as long as possible. Plus, if it's revealed that you have it, that's calling way too much attention to yourself on the part of the police.
yeah, true that.
But what we also learn at the end, there's 2 items. There's a ledger that reveals that Ravash is the one distributing Gnosis. It's confirmation that it's Gnosis. There are links
Yes.
between the DG cult and Ravash. And we find Guy's police badge that is identifiable by a cut on it. And so then it's like interesting. The mafia has this badge. Did the mafia kill Guy? It's a lead that now the police have on Guy's death. And Guy's death had gone unsolved for so long. So that it's interesting that way. But we also then see part of Lloyd's character. A strength of his character is that he recognizes how important that is. He puts the mission first. He says we can figure this part out after. This Gnosis stuff is
Yes.
way more important.
Good. One thing I don't want to see happen, I do not want Highway to become the quote good mafia.
That's fair. You kind of
And
like
I'm worried it
my
might be.
my impression with you is that you want them both to be bad, but in
Yeah.
complex ways that we have to cooperate with one at one point, cooperate with one at the other point.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally get that.
we're just misunderstood, or we have a heart beneath all the murder, corruption, disregard for state institutions. I bet they don't even want dense housing.
Kevin, you are the only person who wants dense housing.
If I could abolish zoning, Colin, I would.
Maybe that can be a sidebar too. How neoliberal Kevin is and proud of it. Well, okay.
I we're in the end game, but for the actual, it's not like the end game for FC and SC was very different from this. It's like there's a fucking coup going on.
Yeah.
Gotta stop it now. And for SC, it was this weird tower shit going on. Then going into the floating city in the sky. Here, it's more mundane. It's still, even with the magical, it's still like not this citywide, I don't know, magic shit going down or gnosis epidemic or whatever.
It's the
As far as
start
we
of it.
know.
It's like when the
As far as we
police
know.
is it's like when the police recognize that fentanyl has been introduced to a community, and it's our job to go find the source of it and shut it down.
And that I think that's it would feel weird for what this game has been to introduce something weirdly a magic emergency. Now, it could happen in chapter five, and I think there's a finale after chapter five, an epilogue, or is chapter five it?
I think chapter five's it.
So it could happen there, but even as we go to the final parts, we are still it's a police case
Yeah.
in a police game.
We don't get a whole lot of police games. There's LA Noir.
We don't know.
At some point, we should talk a bit about that too. But I think we have beaten chapter four to death, and I want to go home. And you're already home.
Well, I gotta go dinner with family.
I got to walk down a hill and play The Witcher 3.
Until next time, I'm Kevin. That's Colin. Happy 2023. Happy 2024. It was great to be doing the third Zero Path of Radiance, different game, and looking forward to what 2024 has to offer. See you next year.
Indeed. See everybody next year. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. And yeah, talk to you in January. Bye bye, everybody.